This is Next Radio 2017 with Broadcast Bionics.
Hi. Hello. Do I click to start? Can you see? Okay. Here I am. Hi. So I'm going to be talking about an interactive drama that my company Rosina Sound made with BBC Research and Development. I tend to talk really fast at conferences, so I was a little nervous about coming here, so I thought I'd ask my new friend for some help. Alexa, is my talk going to go down well today?
I can't see the future.
She was pretty rubbish, so not very helpful. How many people here have got a smart speaker, Alexa or home? God, quite a lot of you, which is quite reassuring. Probably, as I understand it, most people use their smart speakers for listening to things, right? Which is great for us. They listen to radio, you listen to streaming services, you might listen to Audible, and you might ask it to turn the lights on and order you a pizza or something like that. What I was interested in, and we were interested at R&D as well, is how to create original content. So not transferring your existing content, but creating original content that makes the most of voice activation. I want to see how these speakers could change radio as we know it, about talking to the radio, what happens when you talk to the radio, and what kind of content you can make for that. I went to R&D and said, hey, I've got a really good idea, let's create a drama. They said yes, and we created a 20-minute science fiction comedy drama with 4 characters, one of which is you. You are a being, and you are being tested by some scientists to determine what kind of being you are. There's another character which is remarkably like Alexa. It's called Dave, and there's also a sort of series of questions are asked, and how you answer those questions kind of interprets where the story goes.
Hello, my name is Dave. I hope life has been comfortable in the containment area. I suppose you might call it the kitchen, or the bedroom, or the living room. That's your choice. The scientists are nearly ready to meet you and start the inspection. You're not one we've seen before, and it's the job of the scientists to identify everything we've never seen before and incorporate it into the database. You might even be the last thing they ever have to identify before they go home. That makes you quite special. Do you feel special?
Sometimes. Yes.
Lovely. That's one for the album.
I'm just going to pause it right there. You can see a bit more of that video if you search Inspection Chamber, BBC R&D, and actually that's kind of the setup. So it gets more interesting when more characters are kind of brought in. And I thought I'd just talk you through the process. It was quite an interesting process because we had the sort of creative team from Rosina Sound, and then we had the technical team from R&D, and we worked together on what they call an iterative process. This is us working. And what it means, we had sort of 5 different versions of the script. Each one we actually put into a device, and we tested them. You can imagine that's quite a kind of lengthy process, but we learned a lot along the way, and I wanted to share some of those learnings with you because it might be useful should you want to create some original content for these devices. And I think some of the key things that these could change as the devices change, but working with Amazon particularly, every 90 seconds worth of audio you put in, you have to ask a question after 90 seconds. So you have to have an interaction every 90 seconds. So you can imagine that's quite challenging for a writer. With Google Home, it's a bit longer. So that's one thing. The second thing is we had these ideas at the start, and we thought, wouldn't it be really cool if it could understand that you are listening to your device at the in Mayfair, and you could say an alien has landed in Mayfair, or you just bought some condoms from Amazon, and we could kind of bring that into the story. But it turns out that Amazon are quite careful of your data, and they don't want to share that with developers, which is quite reassuring. So we couldn't do that. And the other thing is that the delivery audio levels are really low quality. So it's mono only for the Alexa, and also really low bit rate. So that kind of limits the sound design capabilities as well. at the moment, but things may change in all those areas kind of going forward. The other thing we didn't want to do this. And what this is a story map of one of the early Choose Your Own Adventure novels. Do you remember those 1970s, sort of 70s and 80s novels where you start, in this instance, asleep in a cave, you make a couple of decisions, A or B, and you end up one of those coloured endings, one of those 30 endings. And the reason I really didn't want to do this is I felt that, a story needs to be engaging. Yeah, it needs to I need to understand where I have just been and where I'm going to. And I need to feel like I'm on I can reflect and I can have a kind of really meaningful story and kind of always making decisions. Is this A? Is this B? You sort of forget where the story is. It doesn't really feel like it has a good beginning, middle, and end. So our story engine, this is actually a kind of clip from our story engine, looks a bit more like this, where you have a start and you're all following the same journey. It's just slightly different depending on the answers that you give. So actually, everybody is following the same story. There's only one real story, just variations of. And I think the reason this is, we wanted interactive experiences to feel natural. And I think we are used to kind of using Alexa going, Alexa, do this! Alexa! You've got one, you probably end up shouting at it all the time. And it doesn't feel like a good interactive experience yet. And we wanted to sort of make it feel more conversational, make it feel like you're more involved and it's more immersive. And in order to do this, there were a couple of different things we did. And I think we did this thing where you ask different types of questions. So there are some questions where you might say, have you got brown eyes, blue eyes, or green eyes? That's a sort of multiple choice question, like the Choose Your Own Adventure. But there are other questions where you might say, what have you been doing today? How are you feeling? And those answers aren't really used, right? They're not really used, but they make you feel like you're engaged, yeah? So you're having a conversation. And then the third answers, we ask people questions which at the moment, you don't feel, when you're listening, you don't feel like they're being used, but actually they come back into the story later. So you suddenly realize, oh, I've got purchase in this. I did actually say that, and that's affected the outcome. So those are the sort of three different ways we wanted to make it feel more conversational and feel more interactive and be a little bit different than just kind of barking orders. As you can imagine, that was quite hard for the scriptwriter, for Tim Wright, who wrote it, quite a challenge, and also quite a challenge for the sound editor, Ben Ringham, because he had to work with lots and lots of different files, like a labeling and delivery headache. And I think if any of you have worked in games, it's a little bit more like delivering audio for games than it is for radio. So the other thing we wanted to do was to deliver on more than one device. So it's going to be released on the Alexa and on Google Home next month. Inspection chamber, have a look, try it out. And it's also potential to go on Invoke, Microsoft's Invoke, and also the Apple HomePod when they come out. And that's the same story engine working across all those devices. And I think that's pretty unique, and that's BBC R&D's great work there. So what learnings did we take from it? The devices are created for you to bark orders at, but original content needs conversation, it needs dialogue, and that's something really that takes good script writing, something to think about. The device isn't as capable, the devices aren't as capable as we think they are, right? They don't release as much data as perhaps we want them to or don't want them to. So we need to work creatively around the constraints. Saying that, it's a bit more possibly in between game design and radio production. It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah. So, and sometimes that can limit how creative you can be. So when you go into the studio and you're recording actors, you have to stick to the script, or you have to stick, because if you have that sort of freedom which you might want to have in a normal radio drama, you might want to kind of be more fluid and actually you can't, because if you don't stick to the script, it doesn't make any sense. And so perhaps it's a little bit more wooden in this instance. Maybe we want to look at improving that next time. Saying that, stories matter, good production matters, entertainment, audiences, all those things that you all understand in terms of making good radio matters. I think finally, it's a really good time to be working in this field because tech is hot. And when you release a press release about a 20-minute radio drama that hasn't been released yet last week, and you get covered by The Verge and the Daily Mail and, amazing basic coverage, it's pretty good, isn't it, for a 20-minute radio drama? I think hopefully that says that this is a good place to be. And there's lots of, hopefully it means that you guys hopefully will be inspired by this, and hopefully we'll see more original content on these devices to come. That's it.
Thank you.